Give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai Bahasham Ha Rakat Kwadash. Double honors unto our apostle elders which rule great millstone well, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel. Wa Abba Babal. So today is April 25th, 2026, the year of Jacob's trouble and apostasy. All right. And the devil, the so called white man, which is the red devil the Bible speaks of, is coming down with great wrath, knowing that they have but a short time. And this so called shooting pertaining to Nero 47, all right, you could see that it's a setup. All right. It's a clever setup to get them in the position of power of putting in draconian law, which it says this in Malachi chapter 1, verse 4. It says, whereas Edom is speaking of the red devil, the so-called white man, saith, we are impoverished, meaning we're in a low state, but we will return and build the desolate places. Now, when you read that built, all right, let's go into the interlinear. It says, we are impoverished. Rashasha or Rashash. It says beat down, shatter, to beat down, shatter, to be beaten down, which they're being beaten down to dust by the truth. So what do? They set up a situation that gives them the opportunity to speak as a dragon. They push forth draconian law. All right, so it says in Malachi 1 verse 4, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, we're getting our ass beat by the truth, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. They shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. Which indignation is righteous hatred. All right. Now that word to build, bana, all right, when you go down into it, it says to build, rebuild, establish, which they're going to establish draconian law, cause to continue, to build, rebuild, to build a house, i.e., in other words, establish a family, which they're doing this to benefit the Edomite family, the so-called white race, the red devil the Bible speaks of, all right, by making them a position of power through lies to push forth draconian law. It says to be built, to be rebuilt, which they're trying to rebuild Rome, all right, and they're trying to bring forth the implantable microchip and make it mandatory, causing chaos to bring forth their new world order. Established of restored exiles, which it's going to end with the elect of Israel being saved by Yahweh's son, Yahweh Shai, and established and restored into the promised land. It's going to end with the Israelites winning and the Edomites losing. They're already falling. That's why they got to do these setups of propaganda. It says established, made permanent, to be built up of childless wife becoming the mother of a family through the children of a concubine, which that goes back to the customs of Israel. All right, but what he's trying to do is reestablish the Edomite and their power. All right, it says built again, which they're trying to repair Babylon. Remember, what was Nero 47's slogan? Make America great again. All right, so they're trying to repair America, all right, through draconian law, which goes back to Revelation 13 and is it 13? Let's see. No, I think it's 11. Revelation 11 and let's see. So it's Revelation 13 and 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. All right, so the two horns like a lamb is pertaining to the Republican and the Democrat, and they act like they're angels of light, but in fact they speak as a dragon, meaning they push draconian law, but they cause chaos to give themselves the power, all right, to bring forth draconian law, which it was prophesied since the beginning, because they're the reincarnation of the descendants of Cain. All right, because in the beginning, when Cain was cursed, all right, it said that he would eat of the dust of the earth, which is the chaos that he causes. He causes confusion. All right, it says Genesis 4 verse 8, and Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. And that's what they're doing now. They're rising up against the Israelite. The Edomite is raising its head against the Israelite to try to slaughter us, and they are pushing laws to give them the right to do it. And Yahweh said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother, which he hid his body after he murdered him? And he said, I know not. And that's what they're doing right now in these Ice Cube and Ice T programs. You got what they say, immigrants that went missing. They're saying there's missing adults and children under the watch of the so-called white race. So where are these Israelites? And what's his answer? I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? Who gives a shit, right? So he's not going to receive no mercy. The Edomite, so-called white race, they're going to get exactly what they deserve. And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground, which the wicked don't understand. Every Israelite that is murdered, all right, for their wicked agenda, the Israelite goes back to the Lord and cries to the Lord for justice. It says, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand, which even the earth is defiled under the so-called white race, and all creation is mourning for Yahweh to punish the wicked and them that do wickedly. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. That's why fertilizer is so important, and they're talking about shortage in food because of the lack of fertilizer. They need that fertilizer because they're cursed from the earth and they're ruling right now. So what's going to come upon the world because of the so-called white race, the red devil the Bible speaks of? Famine, death, and destruction. It says, a fugitive and a vagabond shall thou be in the earth. And that's exactly what they are. They're fugitives, hiding themselves. That's why they call themselves so-called white. and a vagabond, meaning they're up in everybody's business. Look at Iran. Look at Taiwan. All right. Look at Greenland. All right. Look at Venezuela. It says, shall thou be in the earth? And that's how the so-called white man is operating today, the wicked and their wicked kingdom. It says, and Cain said unto Yahweh, my punishment is greater than I can bear, which he lost his color of skin. He was a dark man, but when he murdered his brother, Yahweh took his color and made him what he is today, a so-called white man, red. The red devil that you see today. It says, behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from the face shall I be hid, which he has no hope. He's hopeless, he's dangerous, and he's cursed. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. So this is why they call themselves everything but an Edomite. Because they're fugitives, they hide under false names, even the counterfeits, the small hats that are in the Holy Land, those big-nosed bastards are counterfeits. They're fugitives. So they're hiding themselves, calling themselves something that they're not. And a vagabond, meaning they're in everybody's land and everybody's business in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that shall find me shall slay me. Talking about the Edomites, that's their judgment. It was put upon their forefather Cain, and it's going to be carried out when they go into slavery under the Israelite. But it's already happening to where the world is recognizing you for the wicked you are. So you're pretty much greatly despised already. But it's going to come to a point where you're at the bottom and you're under the Israelites' slavery with the other nations, but you're going to be at the bottom. And everybody that, as they say, shit rolls downhill. So Esau is going to be the bottom of the barrel in captivity under all the heathens that are enslaved under the Israelites. All right? But Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahushai, will establish that everyone that findeth the Edomite shall slay them, which this is Cain, the forefather of the Edomite, crying about his curse for murdering his brother, which they still try to do today. And Yahweh said unto him, therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. So there's a hedge around him that no one really could touch him. That's why the so-called white man was so powerful, because he's a sword in the Lord's hand, and the Lord used him to punish the Israelites, but now we're at his end, and the Lord's going to pretty much make him extinct after going into slavery under the Israelite. And this is why Esau is actually having, starting with their king of Babylon, attempts to take their lives, and also the shame that's coming out in the internet of these being the devil the Bible speaks of, the accuser of the Israelite. It says, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. Anyone that touched the Edomite, all right, you would be put under the prison. So that's why we can't avenge ourselves. We have to wait for Yahweh to send Yahweh Shai to save us. And Yahweh set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And that's the lack of the skin color. That's why they call themselves so-called white. They're trying to hide that they're the Edomites. And Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh, because he was rejected, and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, which they always try to hide themselves. So this is why you always had an Enoch that was righteous, and you had an Enoch of this lineage of Cain, which Esau came out of the lineage of Cain, which came back as the Edomite, all right, and they try to hide themselves being fugitives. That's why they call themselves a Jew when they are not. All right. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son, which they still do. Look at America, Amerigo, right? Colombia, Columbus, all right? Philippines, Philip, all right? Africa, Africanus. They do this all over the earth. They put their names and they name the land after themselves. All right. And they still do that today. But it tells you that they would eat of the chaos. All right. Let me grab that point. Right here in verse 14. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, which even the earth, it doesn't give them their strength. That's why they need fertilizer. And from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond. Let me see. Because it calls him a serpent. Let me see. Might have been up a little more. Yeah, it's Genesis 3. All right. It's Genesis 3 when Eve was deceived by the serpent. The serpent was the so-called white race back then in the Garden of Eden. That was another name that they went by, which was the serpent. And the serpent deceived Eve to go against her husband. And the curse that was put upon them was that they would eat from the chaos. So it says in Genesis 3 verse 13, and Yahweh Elohim said unto the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And the woman, Eve, said, which she represented also Israel, the serpent beguiled me, which is that so-called white race when they had color. All right, but when they were Cain, they lost the color. And I did eat, which the woman, being Israel, also symbolically took on sin, which Eve really existed and the Israelites exist. All right. And the serpent deceived the world and caused, through envy, death. All right. It says, and Yahweh Elohim said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle. So they're the bottom of the barrel. And above every beast of the field, upon thy belly shalt thou go. This is why they're considered a serpent. It's not actually a serpent. It means that they're the lowest existence of mankind. And dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. So they cause crazy confusion. All right. They'll set up a situation, right? Like this so-called shooting pertaining to Nero 47 so that they could come down with great wrath, knowing that they have but a short time. They'll speak as a dragon, acting like they're a lamb, all right? Acting like they're an angel of light, trying to protect society, but they're the ones that cause the dangerous situation. It says, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. So now we're in that generation. Her seed is the Israelites, and thy seed it goes back to the Edomites. The sons of Cain is the Edomites. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Which they're going to make war with Yahushai, which they crucified Yahushai, the Roman Edomites. In the first leg under the Roman Empire, and now Yahushai is coming back in the second leg in the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, America. All right? And he's going to enforce the judgment on this great whore. Babylon the Great, who is to be turned into a lake of fire via nuclear missiles by its allies and enemies. But the remnant, the elect of Israel, will be preserved, and we will repopulate after the judgment of the great whore. We will be saved and delivered, and we will be given the heathen, and they will be our slaves, starting with that so-called white race, and they're going to have to pay us back for everything that they done unto us since the beginning of time. So that's what they're trying to hide, and that's what they're trying to alter. That's what they're trying to hide. They're trying to run from. But they can't. It's going to fail. Everything they do is going to fail. Lamentations 4, verse 21, it says, "Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom," which they think they're going to win. They think they're going to be able to make these laws and try to condemn us when they make their implantable microchip, the mark of the beast, mandatory for buying and selling and for identification. That dwelleth in the land of Uz, this is pertaining to America, which is Babylon the Great. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked. Your shame is being revealed. And literally and spiritually, these people are drunken. There's reports right now going on about the head FBI agent, the head of the Department of War being alcoholics. So physically are they drunk and being revealed with shame, but spiritually also, because they are wicked. They're quoting made up scripture. They're being caught up in scandals. It says, "The punishment of thy iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion." That's why this is happening. That's why they had a tornado hit the Air Force Base at the same time they're in World War III. This is why their planes are being shot down from heaven as they're lying to the world saying that they're winning, because they're literally at their end. "He will no more carry thee away into captivity." So all their wicked, deceivious traps they try to set up for the righteous, they're going to fail. "He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins." So it's your time, your judgment, the end of your world, which is the beginning of our world. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. Wa abba babam.